Welcome everybody. I want to introduce myself first. My name is Lars Sonchocky Helldorf and I'm a developer at a small company in Hamburg. We used to use the object and EOF, and not FOSDEM actually, but the stuff is very similar, so I'm experienced in showing you how to build a FOSDEM application, a database application, using GORM, the DB modeler, and project center. At first, I want to show you a small database application I hacked together in the days before. It's called Developer Manager, and I already prepared it. Usually you would open it by double-clicking on the app folder, but we are in Ubuntu. There's no native support for FOSDEM in it, so you have to go to the binary itself. And I'm using Ubuntu because I want to show you that you don't need to switch to FOSDEM at all. If you want to use it, you can get a much better environment, but people mostly are drawn away by the interface that's a little bit outdated nowadays, but it fits pretty well into the GNOME interface. Besides the menus, it's the menu of the application, which apps would usually be here. This is currently the work time, and in future versions you will have an application that fits in your environment perfectly well. So, now I want to show you this application first. You see here two windows. The intention of the application is just to be a mock-up of a demonstration of a small app which you can use to organize your developers in the project as tasks. And I already put some stuff into the database. I can fetch that now. And here you see some developers, some projects, and this are tasks that are assigned to those developers. I can now choose one developer, Nicola for instance, and say we should get a task assigned. Nicola, which task would you have assigned?
Which task? Renaissance rebuilding. Renaissance rebuilding.
And I can type in here. I hope I get the spelling right. And this is FOSDEM project. All the stuff stays in an unsaved state at first, and I have to hit save to make it persistent in the database. Now I can quit the application, restart it, fetch the developers again, and voila, Nicola has still his task assigned. And to show you that not just somewhere, this is tricky. Inside the application I open the database with pgadmin. And you can see this is the database. Here are tables. And if we look into these tables, we will see all those entries. I open the tasks table. And you see all the tasks aligned. As it's usually made in the database, it's built over several tables, and you have to join those tables by the IDs, very basic stuff. While this is good for the database itself, it's also good for working with it. That because of that you want to make your own interfaces for the database or your own applications. So that's it for this small application now. Now I'm asking can you guess how many lines of code I wrote for this application? What do you really know?
It's written outside.
It's written outside. It's actually 0-line code that I wrote. And now I want to show you how to build such an application. With all those tools I mentioned. At first we need a data model. And for that I now trick you into believing this is without code and doing some magic stuff. I'm asking you to give me some ideas for what about the database application should be when we okay. So what kind of database what we implement, what kind of application? Any ideas? Gorm? Gorm? No, we can't implement Gorm with it. We need some entities like, for instance,
A lending library, books.
Okay, books. You need an entity or a table, which is named and we want, in the library, we want also have some users, readers.
Reader. Each one covers a book.
Okay, now we need to find out in what relation those entities are. Obviously, a reader can lend many books.
Up to 3 books, for example.
Let's say just many. Don't make it too complicated. Okay. So relation first, and one reader can have many books. But one book can actually be only
Powered by one reader.
read by one reader. So this is one-to-many relation. This is rather simple, and maybe we add some additional stuff to make it a little bit more advanced. But I don't know actually. I have no idea how the timing is. And maybe we start with this first and add additional features later. So I show you now how to create a data model. And for that purpose, we need to make use of the DB modeler application. No, that's not good. Come on. If you use Ubuntu, then you can install some of the stuff I'm using now, actually almost in here, but those versions that are available at Ubuntu are a little bit bug-ridden. They are a little bit outdated. You know, Debian is the base of Ubuntu. Everything there goes a little bit slow. So I installed the stuff from Ubuntu, but installed over all this the latest version from SVN, where some bugs were fixed, and so we can use it now. So don't be surprised if you want to do it yourself and you install the stuff which comes out of the box from Ubuntu that it may not work really. So now DB modeler. This is an application to map database tables to objects. It's essentially the same like what Apple did with what's entity? No, not entity modeler. AO modeler. And the AO modeler was a modeling application for the AOF. For EOF, it's the Enterprise Object Framework. Very bullshit name, but very good very good framework nevertheless. And let's start now. Wait a moment. I prepared a setup for all what we're doing now. There's a couple of help files we need, and I have made a template for this, which I create a copy now. And then we will, what do we call this application? Librarian, maybe?
Bookshelf.
A bookshelf? Yeah, bookshelf. Now I got this template copied, which contains several files we need. There's all this stuff that the application builder needs later. Actually, here is some code inside. The header files, some controller files, and everything else. It's still named like it was in the template. I renamed this now. What's the problem? I'm on the desktop. Sorry. Fuck. Made a mistake. Now everything inside here got renamed according. This was just a little shell script, nothing special. And we are ready to build the application. Back to DB Modeler. There's already an empty model inside the application template. I open this now. We need better choosers for two-step. This file called bookshelf VO model D, where the little d stands for directory, because it's not actually a file, it's a bundle, contains all the stuff to map the object data to the database in the end. Now we got an empty VO model, and we want to create entities first. The name, the first entity was books, and the second was reader. Let's go now. Did it crash? No. I can't see it anymore. It must have been crashed.
No, edit. Just click away from it.
What?
Click on the taskbar.
Yes, it is. The icon is gone.
Edit data.
Ah, yeah, okay. No, that's the database. It's crashed. Issue effect. Now we add an entity here, two entities actually, called books, and actually we better take the singular verb form, reader and book, because it models one entity. Here are several other columns. You can define a class which you want to use. We now resort to EO generic record, because we don't want to do any special stuff you could do in a special defined class, but it's not needed now. Now here are our entities. First I give it a database name. The external name is the name for the table in the database later on. It's better to use lowercase naming here, because I found there are some problems with the adapter to create a database otherwise. Okay. And when we try to save it now, we get a checking, which tells us several things still missing. For instance, here it says the primary key for both entities is missing. It wouldn't make a good figure in the database without keys, but it saves it nevertheless. But we need what to do. So we now add attributes, and the first attribute is preferably the ID. Come on. Column name, choose the same, ID, and we wanted to have NS number. This is a class from OpenStep or GNU-step, which is used to implement number values. And the external type is what's in the database, and we choose here int 8 because we want to allow for really a lot of those. Then we add an attribute. Wait, first we make this first attribute the primary key, and we lock it. So that means if you change it, if you change this attribute, you can't change it basically. The first attribute of the book is the title. This will be an NS string, a class which can hold string values. and the external type will be a variable character, and we make it quite long, let's say 255 bytes, since some types are long, and we want to have an attribute inside the class visible. This purpose is this column. If you click the little diamond, you will make sure that you can see it in the class object layer, in the object layer. The ID is invisible. We don't want to mess with it. GTL2 takes completely control of it, so we are not PHP or whatever who handles around these IDs. We don't care for that stuff. We are object-oriented. And the third column is whether it's allowed to have the entry coded attribute empty or not. If I click it, it's allowed to have a book without a title. If it makes sense, no idea. But it helps later if you enter data that you don't need to enter everything at the beginning. And then we want another attribute. Let's say that's the author. Also names are not that long, it takes 63 characters. Then the reader, obviously also needs an ID. And we will have a first name and a last name. That's just enough for now. Another question to the American English keyboard. So that's all the attributes we need. We save it now. There are no problems so far. But all about a relational database is all about relations. And so we need to model a relation from reader to book. So since a book can be read by just one reader, but every reader can have many books, we need to add a foreign key in the book entity. And this is called book. ID means foreign ID. and it needs to have the same size as the ID in the book entity, of course, so we can join it. This will not be visible. It will not allow. Okay, we can have books that are not landed currently, but just leave it out for the purpose now. Or maybe, I don't know. Leave it. Maybe another, okay. And now we're going to join those two entities. For that purpose, we going to there's a book FID, it's reader FID. Sorry, I made a mistake. Okay. For that purpose, we are in a relationship, and since the relationships are not that easy to enter here, we have an inspector for that purpose. We could have used it before, but everything by its time, and we call that relationship reader. We want to have it enabled, and we go to inspector. Okay. And now we join the entity reader, and we take the source attribute. Where we're going, where we're coming from, the reader FID, and the destination attribute, which is here the ID of the reader. Connected, and now we're doing the same for the reader to have a reverse relationship. And this we call books because many books are available. And this goes again from the ID to the reader FID, and say to many, connected. Now we can have a look at what we have done in diagram editor, and we can see that one looks similar to what we did here. It's only swapped around. You can use that to get a better impression of what all is in your model and so on. I don't know if it's useful for editing, and if you tried it in the AO modeler, you can use editing, do editing here, and it doesn't look like this. So now we got everything in our model what we need. Now we need to create the appropriate database for it, and for that purpose we get a generate SQL button here, but we need to first say which kind of database we want, and I'm choosing here PostgreSQL because I like it and because it's a really cool database. SQLite, never used it, but this way.
And they can go down
and
outside.
Outside, the nice guys outside put up.
Have you shown them that?
Yeah, they got the Plakat oder was auch immer. Wie heißt das? Poster, legale Poster. Die Passwort hier ist Knustab. Die Host ist die Local Host. Report is, as usually, any database is bookshelf. I had some troubles while creating databases using this adapter, and in the end I realized you have to write the database name in the lowercase. Otherwise you get some unknown troubles. Maybe it's a bug in your model, it doesn't matter. It has to be lowercase. Now we can generate SQL. And we say create database, execute this, and can now have a look into pgadmin. No, it doesn't. It's not worked. Show effect. But if this doesn't work, we can also save this stuff as an SQL file somewhere and do it manually. It's the workaround that always helps. I don't know why it's not working yet. Come on, where is this? Whatever, I created manually. Folder should be Knustab, template none, section, okay. Now it should work. I hopefully we can create tables and stuff like the way it's supposed to be. You can check here several features you want to have. Create tables. If you already got tables in, you want some tables out, you can say drop tables, primary key constants, and you see all the SQL is generated right here. And I hope it works now. Sometimes it locks the databases when I'm still in there in pgadmin. There's the window. Now we will look if it worked. No, 0 tables. Not good. Show effect. Now it's gone. For some reason it doesn't work.
It's FOSDEM.
However, I do it the traditional way.
Maybe just show us how to make an application out of this with the other example. I guess you all know how to create tables.
Okay,
So
but we already
I think,
done right.
yeah, probably.
Similar. Almost done right now. But we need a database. Otherwise we can't.
Sure, but you can use the other example. It does
Yeah, the
try to
database is
do
already
it.
there then. Everything is done then. How do I get this SQL? Ah, here it is, man, I'm blind. Run it, and worked fine. Now we got our tables in here. I think I don't need to show it. 2 tables, whatever. So, now comes the interface part. For that purpose, I go into another application, which is called GORM, for GNU-Step Object Relation Modeler. It's basically a clone of the interface builder from Next or Apple. I open the prepared interface model file now. And such an interface model file consists out of serialized objects, which are deserialized at runtime and connected with proxies with the actual code. We now need a window, or 2 windows actually. We can easily create them by drag and dropping those windows out here. Into here, just to go. Now we got a window, and inside that window we need several interface elements to make those objects to show them to show those objects or edit them. This is an table view which models just a table, and we have several columns inside, and we will bind each column to something out of the database. But first I need to resize the stuff a little bit. Due to a bug, it doesn't work correctly. And I leave out all the additional stuff to refine the interface. I just leave out table titles and so on to be a little bit faster. Now we need some button, which will trigger the action to actually fetch those readers first. Some button to add a reader and some button to remove one. And now comes the interesting part. Now we see an interaction of both applications, and I'm now going to drag some entity over here. Into the GORM model. What is this?
That's why you couldn't.
I did save it, or didn't I?
Reset. It's better to set that up and do it again. Set that up and do it again and save it.
Yeah. In there. Window. And a table view. Some columns. Some buttons. Fetching. Now I save this. I can use it again. Yeah, this would be. Maybe this was the case.
No, it shouldn't.
Was maybe in one version of the model that made it crash.
Maybe you have a noise template. That's
Yeah, the template might be old. Yeah, actually. So now we're going to wire this all up. and I just drag the book inside here. And what we've got now is an editing context. This stands for an editing context, and this is an exemplary example of book entity. An editing context is something like a transaction. You can use this editing context to make your changes, editing, and if you're done with it, you say editing context save, and everything goes in the database. Now we have all those columns here, and we now wire up the columns with the right attributes of the entity. For that purpose, you click into a column, highlight it, and drag with the Control key clicked onto the book entity, and then you choose in the inspector EU column association and wire it up, for instance, with the title, connected, and the other one with the author. And our buttons. First button we connect also to the book, and here we say target is the action what is fired when you click the button is fetch. It works, makes that this button fetches all the books in the database. For the other buttons we need to connect also to the book entity, but we need different actions for an add.
You did not select the book with the button.
Okay. You need to invoke insert, and for the remove, you need to invoke delete. So, now we need a save menu entry. And for that purpose we got the main menu here. This is the menu of the application itself. And here we add the menu item which does the saving. And we will wire this up with the editing context. And they save changes. Connect. Now we are at a state that we actually can try what we have done. It should already work for that purpose. Yes, save. Thanks for the hint. For that purpose, we use the third application of FOSDEM, the Project Center. Project Center is mainly the IDE of FOSDEM, and we use it just to build our application. The icons down here should align by itself automatically. It works in Window Maker but not in the Window Manager form setting. Whatever. We open the project. The build pane. Build everything. And now the launch pane. launch it. And we don't see our window because there it is. We can now add some book. Written by who wrote the book? Ricardo wrote the book.
I wish documentation. We need documentation.
Is it spelled correctly?
With 2 T's.
With 2 T's, okay. And then another book.
You then write another one for. No, that's a book name.
That's a book name. Yeah. Which kind of book you want to have?
For development.
Yeah. And if we save this, quit the application, relaunch it, and say fetch books, a critical error, of course. What's that? Password authentication. Maybe I mistyped the password in the adapter.
This is why it never.
This is the case because all this stuff did not work. Okay. At least it could give me a hint what I did wrong.
Write down your backlist.
Yeah. Again, is a problem. There's a habitual. I'm sure I gave the right password. With everything right, yeah? There should also be nothing in the database, because if the password was wrong, yeah, it's empty. Of course, it's empty. Quit all this document. Show effect, I would say.
Well, it would work like the example you prepared before.
If the example I prepared before did work, I had some troubles. meanwhile, but not that kind of trouble.
Password
Whatever.
authentication, I don't know, password authentication made for user.
Yes, it's here. But I didn't change the database actually. Whatever. I think you saw what I wanted to do. Everybody is gone now. I cleaned the room.
Yes. Yeah, really.
That's a good. Maybe I have to learn a little bit more about presenting.
It's a lot.
Well, it's a matter of luck.
That's it for now. It was my first time for a presentation. I can only learn. Thanks.
You told us.